Welcome to the deep dive. If you are building, funding, or, running a modern SaaS company, then this deep dive is definitely for you. We are going straight into a really critical shift happening right now. It's all about how we actually measure growth. Our learner came to us wanting sort of the shortcut to understanding attribution because the system they're relying on now, it's starting to feel a bit shaky, like a house of cards.
Oh yeah, we get that frustration. It's really common. We have this classic scenario right here in our source material. Picture this. A SaaS founder, they're scaling up, doing, well, all the things you're supposed to do, investing seriously in SEO, running outbound campaigns, generating real buzz on LinkedIn, even landing some decent PR. They've hit about, say, $80,000 in monthly recurring revenue. That's good, right?
Success.
Yeah, it sounds like success, absolutely. Yeah. But then they pull the reports. Maybe it's from HubSpot, maybe their CRM, whatever they use, and they look at how those closed deals are actually attributed. And the numbers are just, well, devastatingly unhelpful. They find that something like 90% of their revenue is being chalked up to direct or organic.
90%.
Yeah, meaning the system is basically saying, well, a customer either typed your URL in directly or maybe Google just magically sent them.
Mm-hmm.
After all that effort, all that sophisticated marketing, the software just shrugs. And the founder is left asking, okay, what do we even trust anymore?
Right. And that's the uncomfortable truth we really need to face today. We have to start by just acknowledging the harsh reality that the research presents. A traditional click attribution. For modern SaaS companies, it's essentially dead. So our mission here is to understand why this data is lying to us. And maybe more critically, what specific actionable metrics should we be using instead? What replaces that last click?
Exactly. And the problem isn't really with the tracking technology itself, not per se. It's more about how human beings actually buy software today. It's changed. We really need to internalize this fundamental shift in buyer behavior. Modern SaaS growth is inherently nonlinear. It's extremely multi-touch. Buyers are not just clicking one ad and then booking a demo.
Oh, absolutely not. They're consuming just an incredible amount of information before they ever even think about raising their hand. The research points out that a typical B2B buyer consumes somewhere between 7 and, get this, 21 pieces of content.
21.
Yeah, before they're even willing to book that first sales call.
Okay, let's just pause on that 21 number for a second. 21 separate interactions. That's got to be at least 2 weeks, maybe even a month of just lurking, reading, watching, validating, all before that final click even happens. That reality alone really proves why the model focused only on the last click is just completely insufficient.
Yeah. And that reality, that gap between the click and the decision, that's where the crucial stuff happens. We call it dark social. And it's basically the natural habitat of your highest quality, most educated leads. The traditional click-based model just cannot see the sophisticated journey that actually leads to the conversion.
Right. Think about all the things happening totally off-site, where your analytics have no visibility. Maybe the buyer sees a provocative thread from your founder on Twitter or LinkedIn. It piques their interest. They don't click the link right then and there. Nope. They open a separate tab, maybe later that day, and search for your company name. That's already a brand interaction that your attribution system is probably just going to label organic.
Or, okay, maybe they do click a link in that thread, but it takes them to a guest spot you did on some niche industry podcast. They listen to it in their car, right?
Yeah.
Then, a day later, they visit your site directly. They just type in your URL. Now they're an educated, warmed-up lead. What does your system see? Direct traffic. Useless.
And here's where it gets even more kind of opaque now. They're actively asking generative AI engines, like ChatGPT or Claude, for solutions to their specific business problem. Maybe they even mention your competitor in the prompt. Now, if you've done your content distribution right, your company name should appear in that AI-generated response, maybe as a highly credible authority. And the buyer clicks link right there.
That click out from an AI answer, that's incredibly powerful, right? Yeah. High intent. But what is your system going to tag it as? Probably referral from like OpenAI.com or something. It completely misses the qualitative trust building that happened just moments before that click.
And maybe the most frustrating blind spot of all. Simple word of mouth. Old school, but powerful. They DM a colleague on Slack. Hey, you ever heard of Wisdom? They seem to solve this specific workflow problem we have. That conversation, totally off the radar. Invisible. And then maybe 4 weeks later, that person who's now totally warmed up finally stops lurking. They type your URL directly into their browser and fill out the demo form. Again, direct.
So your data stack, bless its heart, it's reporting things like, hey, organic traffic is up 6% this month. Great. And it dutifully tags that valuable conversion as direct. Meanwhile, the actual conversion rate from, say, anonymous visitor to demo request hasn't budged. Because the real work, those 7 to 21 pieces of content, wasn't tracked at all.
And this is the critical problem, you see. Companies are using this, well, half-blind data to make huge budget decisions. You might be signing off on a, I don't know, $20,000 annual content budget based on the apparent success of a channel that is simply recording the final administrative step, not the sophisticated effort that actually built the interest.
And that half-blind data leads directly to, well, founder missteps, big ones. If you're stuck rewarding only that last click, you are potentially killing the golden goose without even realizing it.
That's exactly right. You end up misallocating huge chunks of your budget. It's almost inevitable. You might invest heavily in those low-impact bottom-of-funnel channels just because they show better conversion rates in Google Analytics, while you're ignoring the subtle top-of-funnel stuff, the content that actually builds the brand and the credibility needed for the conversion to even happen later on.
Or maybe even worse, you look at that podcast guest spot you did, or that high-level LinkedIn thought leadership piece, or that really valuable evergreen content on your blog. You look at Google Analytics, and it only attributes like 0.05 conversions to it. Tiny number. So you conclude, well, that content isn't working. And you kill it. You stop producing the very material that was actually responsible for maybe 15 of those 21 trust-building interactions.
You're essentially doubling down on a broken playbook because you're rewarding the final action, not the initial influence. And this is exactly where your successful competitors gain a massive advantage. While you're obsessing over optimizing the button color for that last click, they are playing a completely different game.
Okay, so what does that different game look like? What are they doing?
Well, it's focusing on engineering word-of-mouth loops. Actively. They're making sure their content is cited by and shows up in those AI engines when users ask for solutions in their space. They're capturing demand before it becomes explicit, trackable intent. You know, they're playing a longer game. They're focusing on building influence over chasing immediacy.
That feels like the core distinction, doesn't it? And we really need to let this land for a moment. When you are tracking the last click, your most successful competitors are busy building first trust. A click is just, well, it's merely the administrative record of the final action. Trust. Trust is what actually shortens the sales cycle and drives revenue efficiently.
That's it. The click is the result of the trust you've already built, not the cause of the initial interest. Big difference.
Okay, so if the last click is truly dead, as the research suggests, and if the real metric we need to hunt for is momentum, that measure of growing trust, then what? What specifically should that founder, the one scaling past $80 grow MRR, be tracking instead of just clicks?
Right, so we need to shift our focus. The sources suggest looking at 5 crucial categories. These are sort of the modern measurements of momentum. Number 1, self-reported attribution. 2, content-assisted conversions looking broader than the final touch. 3, dark social signals, trying to get a read on that invisible stuff. 4, brand search lift. And 5, something called time to trust.
Okay, that's a great list. It covers both quantitative and qualitative angles. But let's talk feasibility. Starting with the first one, self-reported attribution. I mean, simply asking the customer, hey, how did you hear about us? That sounds really simple. But isn't that inherently prone to bad data? People forget, or they just type Google or friend.
That's a really crucial point, yeah. If you just leave an open text box, you're right. The data is often pretty unreliable, messy. But the sources really emphasize the need to structure that question carefully. So instead of just an open box, you use like a curated multiple choice field. And the options actually reflect your real marketing investments.
Ah, okay. So instead of letting them just type Google, the choices are more specific, like listen to a podcast guest interview, or saw founders post on LinkedIn, or direct recommendation from a colleague, maybe searched for a specific workflow solution name.
Exactly like that. You are basically giving them the vocabulary to articulate the invisible part of their journey. This immediately gives you much better visibility into those dark social channels and the word-of-mouth loops you've been trying to engineer. It's about making that previously untrackable qualitative information actually usable, actionable.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Let's look at another one from that list of 5. Brand search lift. How does a founder practically use this? I mean, outside of just standard Google Analytics keyword report.
Yeah, this is a really powerful, quite passive indicator of momentum. It tells a story. Let's say your general traffic conversion rate stays pretty flat month over month.
Okay.
But the volume of people searching specifically for your company name, things like Wisdom pricing or Wisdom integrations, is spiking up. That is a massive signal. It tells you your offsite activities, your PR, your podcast spots, your LinkedIn presence, all those non-click activities
Mm-hmm.
that are working.
Because they're driving that top-of-mind awareness and credibility, so much so that the buyer skips the generic searches like best CRM and goes straight to validating your product specifically.
Precisely. So if that founder scaling past $80 K MRR sees their branded search volume jump 30% month over month, they can be pretty confident concluding that the content they might have been thinking of killing, it's actually fueling the top of the funnel. Even if the last click report tells them otherwise, they should probably double down on that content, not cut it.
Okay, so if we manage to successfully implement these kinds of new metrics, what does momentum actually look like on the bottom line? How do we connect this kind of marketing success directly to sales efficiency?
Right. So we move beyond just looking at basic close rates.
Yeah.
We need richer signals. You start looking for metrics that prove the prospect is coming in pre-qualified, pre-sold almost by trust. So you're looking for things like shorter sales cycles. That's a big one. The time from that first demo call to a signed contract starts shrinking drastically. You'll probably see a natural increase in referrals too. But critically, you'll observe higher perceived credibility on those very first sales calls.
And this is where the magic happens, right? When the sales team gets on the phone, they aren't spending the first, half hour just establishing legitimacy, explaining the problem space, or selling the category itself.
Exactly. They're jumping straight into implementation details, maybe custom solutions, pricing tiers, because the prospect is already pretty much convinced that you are the authority, that you can solve their problem. Your marketing has done the heavy lifting of building that trust, so sales doesn't have to start from scratch.
That distinction, marketing, doing the heavy lifting, that's maybe the most elegant summary of success here. It's about leveraging all that content, all that presence to create an advantage,
Okay.
where the sales conversation shifts from being about conviction to being more about confirmation.
Absolutely. Look, if your sales team is still spending half the call just convincing the prospect that you're credible and reliable, then regardless of what your direct traffic percentage says in HubSpot, your marketing has fundamentally failed at its most important job. Success isn't just about the volume of leads anymore. It's about the velocity and the quality of those leads. Lowering your customer acquisition cost, improving the lifetime value because customers close faster and maybe stay longer. Yeah. That's the true ROI of building trust.
Okay, so let's bring it right back to that founder who's confused by their data. The diagnosis from the research seems really clear. You probably don't have a traffic problem.
Yeah.
And you might not even have a conversion rate problem, not in the traditional sense.
Exactly. The core issue is fundamentally a visibility gap and a measurement gap. It's about what you can't see. You simply cannot accurately track those crucial 7 to 21 interactions that are actually driving the deal forward. So this raises the essential question for you, the listener, that you need to address, like right now. What systems, what processes do you need to put in place to effectively capture these new kinds of metrics?
Yeah, specifically, how do you operationalize that self-reported attribution field so it actually gives you reliable, targeted data, not just noise? How do you maybe set up triggers or dashboards to monitor that brand search lift effectively? Realigning your attribution with how buyers actually behave today means shifting your budget, moving it away from just chasing easily trackable clicks and towards intentionally engineering those trust-building loops.
Just think about the budget you might be wasting right now if you misallocate based on that flawed last-click data. By focusing instead on metrics like time to trust, you're investing in assets, content, influence, presence that actively short-circuit the sales process and make it more efficient.
So if you are making critical budget decisions right now, maybe heading into planning for next quarter or next year, really consider where your current metrics might be actively, lying to you. Shifting your focus from simply chasing clicks to deliberately building and measuring that time to trust changes your entire strategy. It has to. Maybe your very next step isn't optimizing another Google ad. Maybe it's auditing your demo request form to make sure you're finally asking the customer the right question about how they actually heard about you.